What's up guys, it's McNulty here. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are all doing well, and it is my favorite time. It's time for the Soul Exchange. It's finally here. So we have September 2023 Soul Exchange, and this has probably been the most well-planned Soul Exchange that we've had yet, because we were aware what heroes were going to be in it, and most of us have had a chance to have a look at this list already. So I do want to go through these heroes. I want to sort of make up my mind on who I'm going to pick. And I also want to hopefully give you guys a little bit of insight into which heroes I think that you should be looking at, depending on how many souls that you have available to trade. So we're going to go ahead and go in here, and we're going to select some heroes to trade, so that we can highlight all of these heroes. First of all, we'll just get our 20 heroes that we need. I have gone in and just made sure that these are dupes and heroes that I don't really want. I've decided in terms of costumes, if I don't have a costume for the hero, like for example, like Zimkeitha, Inari, Poseidon, if they don't have a costume, then I'm just going to go ahead and trade them. Because why the fuck not? Anyways, we've got 20 heroes ready to go. So let's start by looking at this first row. I want to go a little bit quickly through these heroes, because some of them are going to be duds and some of them are going to be heroes that you may want to consider. So we'll start off from left to right with Viscaro. So Viscaro is an interesting hero. I mean, he is a slow speed hero. He is a hero of the month. He's from the 2022 family, so he gets an increased attack, which he definitely needs because he doesn't do that much damage. His slow speed special deals 220% damage to all enemies, but by today's standards and with that low attack stat, that's not going to help you out very much. What Viscaro does do well is that he is pretty good in bloody battles because he casts fiends. His fiends are extremely difficult to get rid of. They've got 50% of the target's maxed health before you get rid of them. So that can be useful in bloody battle, although he is running at slow speed. And also he does have a little bit of minion control because he's got this passive where he resists negative minion effects, and another passive where if any enemy summons minions, they summon a fiend as well. So that's about all Viscaro's got going for him, and he would not be my pick from the row of 10 souls. I did max him and I wasn't too impressed with what he did. And also his stats are slightly dated. So that's about all I'm going to say about Viscaro. Now, the next hero, on the other hand, Gilligan, he's been interesting because initially I wasn't a fan of him. I was like, well, slow speed, 300 damage to the target and nearby. Like, what's that all about? And the bypass chance, I mean, the defense up. It didn't sound very good. But this guy's passives make him an easily underestimated hero, and he can actually be quite good. So his initial passive, he gets mana per enemy buff. So he gains a small amount of mana for every active status buff that the enemy team has at the start of each turn, and this can go up to a maximum of 20 buffs. So a small amount of mana gained is about 5%. Not to bore you guys to death, but that means that if you had 4 buffs on the enemy team, he's going to gain 20% mana at the beginning of the turn, making him into a functionally average speed hero. And that mana gain doesn't stop, it starts and carries on going every single turn. So I've seen some videos of this guy in action, and he can actually be pretty devastating against a buff heavy defense. So that is important to remember. He also has innate resistance against status effects or ailments that affect mana, which does help because he's just boosting his own mana all the time with the other passive. So he's a pretty good hero actually. And for 10 souls, his stats are not bad. He is a 2023 hero of the month, so he's quite recent as well. And he definitely does have his place. I could definitely find a place for him on my roster now, even though I fed away all of mine. If I just had 10 souls to trade, I wouldn't think Gilligan was such a bad choice. Now, Peridot. The ninja. She is one of the newer ninjas of the old ninjas, if that makes sense, because we've had the sort of meta ninjas like Oniwakamaru, and then all of the other new meta ninjas that have been released. Peridot is one of these sort of newer old ninjas, and her stats reflect that. I mean, her stats are not bad. 815 on the attack, maybe slightly lower on the defense, 1435 on the health is pretty decent stats. She is of the rogue class, which is a definite tick in the right box for her. And her special skill. Now, this is an interesting one because she does deal damage and she does cast status ailments as well. But the damage is not that much. So on her first charge, it's 240% damage to the target, and then 220 poison damage over 2 turns, and reduced accuracy. The only issue there is that the poison damage is just 110 per turn for 2 turns, and it's only to a single target. So you would really want to be getting her to charge 2, which is functionally average speed, and dealing 280 damage to the target and nearby, because then they're receiving 438 poison over 3 turns, and they get minus 40 accuracy for 3 turns. So at second charge, I do think that she is quite relevant. And the poison damage also will increase with limit breaks. So you can see it goes up there to, at second charge, 597 poison over 3 turns. So that's a good 200 per turn with the increase from you get from your troops as well. So I do actually like Peridot. And I think, especially if you get her to the second or even the third charge, where she's dealing that 320 damage to all enemies and 1,000 plus poison damage over 4 turns, she can be devastating if you don't have a cleanse. And the reduced accuracy as well, that can play havoc with your team trying to back yourself out of a sticky situation. So she is a pretty good choice at 10 souls. In fact, it's going to be difficult, this one. I'm just warning you guys in advance. There's some good heroes in here. Now, moving along. Crave Crush. Crave Crush is a unique hero. There is no other hero like Crave Crush in the game as it is currently. As of the date of recording, September 2023. Nobody else does this. So he gives, well, some people are going to argue with me because there are some that do it to a degree, but he does it all in all. He prevents reviving. He is the anti-revive hero of Empires and Puzzles. And that doesn't just apply to special skills, it applies to talents as well. So if people are reviving with a fighter class, they're not going to be able to do that once they've been hit by Crave Crush. And that effect is going to last for a full 5 turns, which is great. Now, he doesn't fit in everywhere, and he is a little bit tricky to use because his damage is upfront and splash damage. So I didn't mention it, but 430 damage to the target and minor to nearby is the same as somebody like Zagrog does. It's exactly the same. His stats are very similar, and it is a pretty decent hit for him to be doing. But he's difficult to control. If you pair him up with a hero like Marjana, for example, you give the elemental defense down or defense down first, then that hit can kill. But the main factor of this guy is that he casts that anti-revive for 5 turns. So all enemies can't revive their allies or themselves, and all enemies can't receive new status effects that would resurrect them for 5 turns. That is an excellent skill against heroes like Mother North in the Rush format, against Dabria, for example, against Costume Heimdall, against revivers like Anne, for example, Costume Finley. So these heroes that when you put them down, you want them to stay down. Crave Crush is your guy. So he is actually a really good hero. I do like him. And don't forget about his passive. He gets 20% mana at the start of the battle, which means that the first time you fire him off is functionally fast speed. So if you fire him off you can fire him off alongside somebody like Costume Marjana, maybe take an enemy out, and that enemy is going to stay dead. So that is what I got to say about Crave Crush. He's pretty damn good. And then we've got Iris. So Iris is an interesting one. She does hit pretty hard. She is running at fast speed. And she does have a passive, which is a mana on buff dispel. It's not really that great. And resistance to fire or to burn is also not that great. But she does deal 325 to the target and minor to nearby. And with her high attack stat, that does feel like a pretty hefty hit. She also dispels buffs from the target and nearby at the end of each turn for 3 turns. So she is a dispeller. She's not an upfront dispeller, but it means that once you've been hit by her, you are basically immune to buffs, because every time you cast one, it gets dispelled at the end of that turn, unless you cleanse that effect off, which is a pretty decent skill for Iris. So I do like that a lot. Now, who do I think is the best pick in this first row? In order, I would probably go Viscaro as the worst, and then I would go, it's difficult to say, probably I'd say I'd put Gilligan in 4th place, Peridot as a close third to Iris. Actually, no, switch those around. Iris in 3rd, Peridot in 4th, and then Crave Crush, I think he is an absolute steal for 10 souls. If you know how to use him, he can be a really effective hero. So I wouldn't discount him if you've got just 10 souls to spare. Now, moving on to the second row, we have Costume Seashat. Now, she is a very, very good option. She dispels buffs from the target and nearby enemies at fast speed. She prioritizes that dispel, and she deals 370 damage to a single target. So she is technically a sniper, but she dispels 3, and she prioritizes the dispel. That's very important, because if you're going up against a counterattack hero like Costume Oberkhan, for example, you want to get rid of that costume attack, that counterattack, before you do that damage. Otherwise, you're just going to fall flat on your face. So that is where Seashat comes in clutch. Her stats for an older hero are really good, and she does protect herself with a minion, and she gives mana generation increase for all dark allies. So I do like Seashat. I think that she's a great hero, and if you're in need of a dispeller in dark, she's your girl. I often use Demetia, but she's not quite as good. In fact, she's nowhere near as good, to be fair. Seashat is a really good dispeller. Now, Wolfgang. He is, I don't really like Wolfgang. I'm just going to say it straight away. He takes too long to get to the point of his special. It's like he's just giving you this long-winded lecture that you really don't want to hear until the end. Like probably what I'm doing now. Nah, but maybe not quite as much. So, he deals 250 to all enemies. Alright, at average speed, we've seen heroes that deal a lot more. It's not that big of a damage. His attack stat is pretty abysmal, so it doesn't really help that much. He reduces received damage for himself for 4 turns, so he's a bit selfish in that respect. If you do pair him up with other heroes of the same family, the Wolf family, there's a chance for that buff to become undispellable. So that does help him. And it can make him more usable if you have pairings with heroes like Ludwig or Quenelle or Quentin or not Quentin, sorry, any other heroes in the Wolf family. Now, after 4 turns, the caster boosts the health of all allies by 600. I mean, that's great. A boost of 600 is great, but after 4 turns, which is a heck of a long time to wait for that boost. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to die before the boost takes effect. You really have to plan around it with a team that just focuses on making sure that he survives. So I don't think Wolfgang is going to be your guy from this second row. I'd definitely rather choose Seashat so far. Now, Kongolak, on the other hand, in the same class, is an absolute G. Kongolak is a slow hero, but he hits like an absolute truck. He deals 310% damage to the hit targets and an additional 310 to 4 random enemies. So it's a hit 5 for 310, but you've no idea who it's going to hit. And he gets the stack, which each hit gives its target minus 9% attack. Many people often forget about that, but it makes it difficult to come back from a hit. And he's kind of a sleeper. If you put him in the wings, on defense, or if you put him next to somebody like Ludwig, for example, he's gonna wallop you, and before you know it, your whole team's gonna be dead. So he is a great hero. He is a heavy hitter, and don't forget about the negative attack. That definitely makes a difference with him as well. So yeah, I do like Kongolak. He gets the damage reduction passive on special skills, so it's more difficult to kill him, and that works really well alongside the fighter class as well for him. So yeah, Asterius, he's been featured before in the Soul Exchange, and he was for 20 souls. I thought he was sort of overpriced at 20 souls, but now he's at 15 souls. He is actually a really good hero. He's an average speed hit 3 hero doing 360% damage to the target and nearby. I mean, that's similar to what we've got here in the top row, to the target and nearby for 20 souls. The only thing is the stats are much lower. So you can see his team power is only 802, which is about, well, it's a point lower than Viscaro's. So he definitely hasn't aged very well. He does reduce the target's buffs by 1 turn. Target and nearby by 1 turn. It's okay, but nothing to write home about. But the target and nearby get this corrosive burn, which deals 101 burn damage and lowers the defense by 16% each turn. If you want to fire him off as a defense down hero, the negative part of that is that you have to wait 1 or 2 turns before you fire off in order to get the maximum effect from the defense down. So he technically would be best paired with a slow speed hitter like Costume 2 Colin, for example. Or maybe Khufu, for example. I mean, Khufu will just wipe the team on his own. So while he is a good hero, it's a little bit more difficult to use him, and it's difficult to plan around how and when you fire your special off after he goes off. And I wouldn't recommend him as a defensive hero either. So he is a bit limited. Now, Glenda is also here for 15 souls. I was surprised. I thought she might be at 10 and Iris at 15, but Glenda does have quite a bit of usability for those of you who love going after the Mythic Titans. She's able to give that increased attack. If you've got double Pengies, she'll increase the special skill damage by 40%, and her element link summons an ice minion for all ice allies. So I would say that if you're looking at going up against Mythic Titans and you have 2 Pengies, and that is like one of the things that you enjoy most about the game, then I would probably choose Glenda. If you're not, probably not. Not for 15 souls. She does cleanse status elements from all allies, which is a good effect as well. But if you want somebody who increases the special skill damage, I would say that you probably Costume 2 Grim is probably a better option to increase nearby, and he does that at average speed as well, with a higher damage output, slightly higher. So yeah, it's interesting actually. I mean, looking through these heroes, it's really more of a case of who you like, and don't let anybody tell you, even myself, don't let me tell you who you should pick. Make up your mind on your own. This is about who you like and who you think would be fun and who you can see synergies with from the heroes that you have on your roster. So this is just a guideline. Now, out of the second row, if I'm going to rank them from worst to best, I'd say Wolfgang would be my number 5 pick. I don't know. Maybe Asterius and Glenda would be a tie for third. Seshat in second, man. And I would say Kongolak would be my pick from the second row. So far, first row would be Crave Crush if you got 10 souls. Second row, Kongolak if you got 15. And then the third and final row. Let's go ahead and have a look at these guys now. So we have Khonshu. Khonshu is an incredible hero. He really does work well with synergies with other heroes who give defense down. He's running at very fast speed, and if he defeats the target, he gains 50% mana. Now, you could build a whole team of Khonshus, and you could just keep them firing, But then I'm not a huge fan of leveling dupe heroes, and I do have a Khonshu leveled, so he wouldn't be my personal pick. But he is a good hero. I'll give him that much. I mean, the fact that he fires at fast speed makes him very usable. Professor Lidenbrock, again, a problem with this one is that she's got a costume, and her costume is much better than the original. Now, that doesn't mean to say that she's a bad hero. She's still a good hero, and she does prioritize cleanse, which is very important. She does provide a health boost, but it is a heal over time, and it can be dispelled. The regeneration of boosted health can exceed the max HP, and the effect duration resets if the target receives status ailments. So the only way it's going to reset there is if you receive status ailments, and yes, she does have a chance to keep it going, but unfortunately she doesn't really stand alone as a healer. You need somebody who's going to heal with a bigger upfront heal, and her costume does that, and her stats for her costume are a million times better. So I would not choose Professor Lidenbrock. If you do want a healer in yellow, while she does cleanse, you can get a cleanse for a much cheaper cost. Now, Liu Bei, I think that's how you say it, is probably one of the newer heroes in this bunch, and I do think that he is one of the better Three Kingdoms heroes. He is incredible in terms of the effect that he does, because nobody really has that effect except for the other Three Kingdoms hero who's slow speed, where the effect is attached to the minion. It means that the effect can't be dispelled. So what do I mean? The counter attack is what this guy's all about. So he does deal a pretty decent amount of damage, 360 to the target and nearby enemies, but when he summons that minion, the minion gives the ability to counterattack for 60% of the damage received, as long as the owner has a Shoe Soldier minion. And the effect, again, can't be dispelled because it's attached to the minion. So with Liu Bei, he pairs up extremely well with heroes like Guan Yu, who gives the defense down first, and he can then come in, take that defense down, hit for another 360, and then throw up the counterattack minions, so that if the enemy attacks you after that, they're just doing a detriment and they're going to kill off their whole team. I have struggled many times against Liu Bei on defense. Now, there are counters for him. Obviously, if you remove the minions, if you have a hero like Grimble, or even if you have a 4-star hero like, what's his name now? Gormek, costume Gormek, the first costume. You can remove those minions. They are he is in the right color, actually, Gormek, for countering Liu Bei. So there definitely are counters available. You just need to make sure they're ready to go. Otherwise, you're going to be chipping away at yourself. So he makes an incredibly good part of an attack team with average speed green heroes, especially with defense down. And also, I think that he is usable on defense as well, because you're going to need a counter for those minions. So yeah, a good hero, Liu Bei, and I think if you've got the right pairings, he could be extremely useful for you. Now we have Hoenn Worth. This guy is a cool looking dude. His special initially was supposed to be absolutely game changing and one of the most devastating in the game, summoning a fiend with unlimited mindless attack, but it now only lasts for 4 turns, unfortunately, and the fiend explodes and does a measly 150 damage to the target. So while he is a good control hero, and he can give mindless attack, if you're looking for somebody who just gives mindless attack, and I mean, for the most part, to be fair, your control heroes are most effective in the rush format, I would grab someone like Waddles, and he can do the job. I won't say just as well, because he does hit harder, this guy, but he's kind of like, I'm on a bit of a downer as far as Hoenn Worth, and then there are counters to the fiends as well, which can mean that summoning a fiend is actually a detriment to your team. And then lastly is good old boy Quinton. Now Quinton has a unique special as well. So kind of like we looked at Crave Crush, he's got a very unique special skill, which nobody else in the game has. So he deals 420% damage to the target. And then once he hits a target, this target gets a mark, which means that it receives 100% damage for all damage the allies receive for 4 turns. So if you hit someone with Quinton, you've marked them for death, basically. That is it. There is no coming back. And they will receive damage for any other damage that their enemies receive for the next 4 turns, which is long enough for it to make a huge impact. Even for an old hero, his attack stat is good. 821 is decent. He is of the right class, so the rogue class gives him the ability to dodge, and also means that you can boost that attack up to be one of the highest attacks. It's the highest attacking class in the game, is what I'm trying to say. So Quinton would be a good choice as well. And for me, as I'm looking at this and going through these heroes, I'm still slightly torn as to who I would choose. I mean, for me, at this top row, I would say it's definitely got to be between, I would say Quinton and Liu Bei. In terms of the value of the hero, do I think that they're worth 20 souls? Depends. I mean, it really depends on you. But personally, for this soul exchange, I don't think any of these heroes are worth the 20 souls. So I've decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for one of the other heroes. So this may surprise you, but I like red heroes. And out of these 3 red heroes, I think that the best value for my souls is definitely Crave Crush. I just think that, you know, for his special, for what he does, he's going to serve me extremely well. I do have defense downs in the elemental for red, so he's going to be great. I can deal with the fact that he hits the target for a set amount and then minor to nearby. So for me, this is going to be my pick. And I also like the fact that his first fire of his special is running at fast speed, and I don't need to trade in 20 heroes. Sorry, guys. And I don't need to trade in 20 heroes to be able to grab him. So that's going to be my pick for this soul exchange. And I wish you guys all the best of luck with making your minds up, because I'm still torn, to be fair, between these guys. Yeah, 60% counter attack. It's not a huge amount, and his minions can be dealt with pretty okay. But then he does also get the family bonus as well, which gives mana each time the minion's summoned, and a heal each time the minion's summoned. But yeah, I think that he can be easily countered, to be honest. So I am going to go with Crave. So let's select the heroes. Let's reselect the heroes. I don't even know how this works, to be fair. So I'm just going to bumble through this. And I think I might be able to get away with all Season 1 duplicates, which means I'll have more heroes for the next time the Soul Exchange comes around. So there we go. Those are all going to be Season 1 heroes. We're going to go ahead and push exchange. Boom. Crave Crush, the Etin Commander, will be received in exchange for the following 10 selected legendary heroes. Hell yeah. Let's get him. I think it's a bit different, this one, because I think they're supposed to come out of the portal, but now they just like add to them like you're leveling them up. I wish he'd come out leveled up. That'd be great. Boom. Got him. And that is that. So yeah, I hope you guys have found the videos useful, or this video useful at least, and I wish you guys all of the best in making up your mind. This is one of the most frustrating times of the of every 3 months, but I'm certainly happy with my choice, and I hope you guys are all happy with yours. Please do drop us a like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know who you chose and why you chose them, and I'll see you all again in the next video. Bye for now, guys.